Reform UK, which, in case you didn't know, chat, is basically the most prominent, seemingly based party in the UK. Reform UK smashes all-time polling high, with gap against Tories now vanishingly small. The Nigel Farage-linked party has reached a new polling record of 14%. Doesn't sound like very much, but for a third party, when the Tories are polling so low, that's dangerously high for the Tories. It's a picture of Richard Tice. Oh, is that Richard Tice? I don't know. I don't think it is. Actually, is it? I don't know. I clearly need to learn more about this party. Reform UK has hit its highest ever level of support in a new poll. The YouGov survey put the insurgent party, led by Richard Tice, up 1 point on 14%. The Tories are just 6 points ahead with 20%, while Labour is in the lead on 46%. Labour are disgustingly far ahead. But I think there's a lot of disaffected Tory voters who, if that 20% suddenly arrives with Reform UK, will go with it. And even if they don't, that's what the right should become now. And I'm quite happy to smash the Tories apart by splitting the vote, punish them for that, and then replace them over the next 5 years, even if it means that we have to suffer through Labour for 5 years. And what other choice do we have? It may be that by the time we get the next general election, Reform UK are the only party, or the Conservative Party has totally reformed, such that it's actually worth voting for. Either one of those would be okay, and those are possibilities. But if we can't get that, I think we should still split the vote. Mr. Tice told The Express, "We knew we would hit 14% soon. Delighted to see we're catching up with the toxic Tories," wouldn't call it that, now just 6% behind them. Very close. That might be, I don't know if it's the closest that a third party has come to the second party in like the last 20, 30 years or something, because maybe Labour in 2019 were lower, but they might not have been actually. It's very close though. You know, you don't get third parties that close to the main two parties almost ever. It's very good news. Quote, "As more people hear about us, look at our policies and on our website, they realise only Reform UK can save Britain," they say, and they might be right. The poll of 2,100 UK adults conducted between February 28th and 29th put the Lib Dems and the Greens both on 7%, while the SNP is on 3%. That's a lot less than I'd previously heard. A new polling record for the rebranded Brexit Party, which had previously reached a high of 13%. The party is currently taking 21% of those who voted Conservative in 2019, according to YouGov, which is a really high amount. Big tax cuts and a 10-point boost in polls. Rishi Sunak's new plan for a May election. Now, we may not cover the May election thing in full now, but this is a mad notion. I cannot imagine a worse idea for the Tories right now than to have a May election, unless they are so like, if they're more worried about Reform UK than they are about Labour. That's why they do a May election, just to prevent the momentum. But they'll lose hugely if they do that. They'll lose their entire lead. However, if they do a May election, they won't stop existing as a party. But if they wait until the end of the year, maybe they would. So maybe that's why they'd be doing it. They'd be suicide. But I guess that's what they meant earlier by kamikaze election, Motch, when we looked at that during the pre-show. If Rishi Sunak wants to call a general election for May 2nd, he must do it by March 22nd at the latest. Express has learned the plan to allow that. So I'm mostly interested in the first part of the title. The 10-point boost in the polls would not bring him equal to Labour. Even if he takes those 10 points entirely away from Labour, he'll still be 6 points behind. He's 26 behind, according to that poll we just saw. It's one of the many polls, but still. But as I said, like, I think they're going to say it here. It's being described by some Tory MPs as the kamikaze option, but it seems the general election on May 2nd is still a real possibility, despite Labour's massive lead in the polls. But according to well-placed Conservative sources, there is a plan to make a May 2nd election work as possibly the best and only option to save the Tories from a historically disastrous defeat and even pull off a miraculous victory. It's not going to happen. It all starts this week when Jeremy Hunt gets on his feet to deliver the budget and what it contains. There is now serious speculation that the Chancellor will shock his own party and the nation with what he is preparing to deliver on Wednesday, after sounding cautious and playing down expectations for months. A senior Tory source told Express.co.uk there will be big tax cuts, big income tax cuts. They, the party leadership, believe it will give them a 10-point boost in the polls in 2 weeks. That is extremely optimistic. Tax cuts good, but 10 points in 2 weeks? Not sure about that. The timing of 2 weeks is crucial, they say. The budget is on March 6th, and the fortnight takes them to March 20th, just 2 days before the last day that Rishi Sunak can go to the King and ask Parliament to be dissolved to hold an election on May 2nd. If he pulls it off, then it could be one of the boldest moves in British political history, and one which brings about a more astonishing turnaround than Sir John Major's unexpected victory in 1982 against Sir Neil Kinnock. What's going to happen is they're going to put this in. They're going to increase their poll numbers by 2 or 3%. They're going to call the election. They're going to lose 8 points in the polls immediately. And then Reform UK will ramp up like crazy. A bunch of MPs will leave to Reform UK, and Reform UK will possibly win it anyway. And that's optimistic. Maybe that wouldn't happen. But that's a distinct possibility. This kamikaze routine is a very long shot, I think. Opinion is divided within the Conservatives on this issue. Those who think it will be an autumn election in October, November still believe that to be the safe option. One MP said he needs time to turn the polls around, and an autumn election is still rightly the bookies' favourite currently. The weakness of both Sunak and Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer's respective positions has fueled speculation of a May election. They are both weak right now. Even with Labour so far ahead, I think all they're doing is keeping roughly the same portion of a shrinking pie. But more inspiring options are waiting in the wings. After the civil war and the Conservatives were fueled by the controversial suspension of Lee Anderson last week, who has now met with Reform UK people, one Tory insider said, "I am not sure Sunak can hold the party together by the autumn. He needs an election to bring everyone together, or he could still be facing a vote of confidence in his leadership. People are really unhappy." They should vote of confidence in him straight away. That would be fantastic. Then there is the view that the last few weeks have exposed Labour and Starmer's leadership, and not least the debacle where they have had to disavow their own quote-unquote anti-Semitic candidate in the Rochdale by-election. One MP said, "Starmer is weak, he is vulnerable, he does not have control of the extremists in his party, and he no longer has any policies to fight on. This poll lead for Labour is soft." And I think it's a distinct possibility that Starmer is nowhere near as strong as the polls imply. That is where the budget matters, they say. As one Tory noted, if we go on a platform of big tax cuts, it provides clear blue water between us and Labour. Labour will have to explain why they are putting people's taxes up again. Added to that, the tax cuts will be fresh in people's pay packets in April, not long before May. So there will still be a good feeling about them at the point which might not be the case in October. That is true. That is true, but it's still pretty minor by comparison. Starmer dropping his 20, a bribe, basically, to get people to vote against the interests of the nation. I think at this point that's going to do less than you hope. Starmer dropping his £28 billion a year Green Deal plan, oh, it's going to be so bad if Labour win, has left the party without a serious economic offer, which would also be part of the calculation. But there are negative reasons to go early, not least the small boats. As one MP put it, "We will not stop the small boats by the summer. If we wait until autumn for the election, we will have had weeks of bad headlines about small boats coming over." We also have the prospect of the Rwanda plan working in time in terms of flights going over, and that will give us differentiation from Labour. The Rwanda plan is a pipe dream. That's why I'm not convinced. It's not a terrible idea if you can get it to work, but the amount of effort they spent into it and the amount of good it would actually do being relatively low, if they are so limited, then it indicates that the whole system needs to be revamped. If it's a Quango problem, then that's the problem. The Rwanda flight is a tiny plaster on it. They should be shouting from the rooftops at every opportunity, "The civil service is corrupt, and here's how we fix it. We need your mandate for this." If the Conservative Party did that, they might get a huge boost. They might be sabotaged instead, but at the moment it is largely speculation. But if Hunt delivers on Wednesday, then a May election becomes a serious option and could in effect be Plan A if the polls do turn as the Tories expect them to. This coming week will be the make or break week for Sunak and his premiership. Now, that said, there is in fact a new budget, which was just dropped. Let me see if I can find it. Jeremy Hunt is expected to announce a 2p cut to national insurance when he delivers his budget on Wednesday. The plan, which matches a cut announced in the autumn statement, was first reported in the Times. Is this recent? Because I thought that this had dropped 2 hours ago. Okay, so tomorrow. Tomorrow it's likely to happen. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. We'll see what happens tomorrow. If they release a budget tomorrow and it has a lot of red meat in it, so tax cuts, for example, then it is quite possible at that point that we can infer that they are going to try to go for a May general election, which, again, the only reason for them to do that is, I've read 69 articles this month. Yay! The only reason for them to do that is to try and hurt Reform UK, because they know that if it goes on long enough, then they will lose a lot of support to Reform UK.